I'm 78 years old, and I need to say something out loud before I run out of chances to say anything at all. I spent most of my life as a doctor. People still call me that, even though I haven't worn a white coat in years. They say it with respect, sometimes with awe, sometimes with gratitude. And I always nod and thank them and smile in the way I learned to smile a long time ago. But there's something I've learned in the quiet rooms where people die, something I've watched unfold again and again, something I believed myself for most of my life. The biggest lie people believe before they die is that they still have time. Not in a vague way, not as a philosophical idea, in a very practical, everyday sense. Time to fix things, time to make things right, time to say what matters, time to become who they meant to be. I believed that lie. I believed it while I was busy saving other people. I believed it while I missed my own life. These days, my mornings are slow. I wake up before the sun, not because I need to, but because my body doesn't remember how to sleep late anymore. I sit at the edge of the bed for a few seconds, sometimes longer, letting the stiffness settle, letting the day introduce itself. The house is quiet, too quiet most days. My wife has been gone 6 years now. Cancer. Quick, and then not quick at all. People talk about peaceful deaths. I don't know if I've ever truly seen one, only quieter ones. I make coffee, weak coffee, according to my younger self, strong enough for who I am now. I sit at the small kitchen table, the same table we bought when our children were little. It has a burn mark on one corner from a pot I set down in a hurry sometime in the 90s. I remember being annoyed about that burn. I remember thinking how careless it was. Now I'm glad it's there. It proves we were once rushing. It proves the house was once full. When I was practicing medicine, people used to ask me if being around death all the time scared me. I always said no. That wasn't exactly true. It didn't scare me, but it trained me. It taught me to compartmentalize, to separate feelings from function. You can't do this work if you feel everything all the way through. So you learn to place emotional distance between yourself and the person in the bed, not because you don't care, but because you do. That's what I told myself. What I didn't realize was that the distance I practiced at work began to leak into my personal life. Quietly, gradually. I grew up in a working-class family. My father worked in a factory. My mother cleaned houses. They wanted stability for me, safety. When I told them I wanted to become a doctor, my mother cried. My father didn't say much. He shook my hand. I thought that meant pride. Later, I realized it also meant expectation. Medical school was exactly what you'd imagine. Long hours, little sleep, constant pressure. Everyone around me seemed smarter than I was. So I worked harder. I didn't question whether I liked it. Liking it felt irrelevant. This was about becoming someone. This was about building a future. I met my wife in my second year. She was studying education. She laughed easily, not loudly, softly, like something surprised her. We studied together sometimes. Mostly, she watched me study. She used to bring me sandwiches because she worried I forgot to eat. She was right. We married young. Too young, some people said. It felt right. We didn't have much. A small apartment, second-hand furniture, big plans. I told her things would be easier after residency, then after fellowship, then after I made partner, then after I paid off loans, then after I built a reputation. There was always an after. She never complained, not in obvious ways, but I can see it now, in the photos, in the way her smile slowly changed, not smaller, just more contained. We had 2 children, a son and a daughter. I remember holding each of them for the first time. Those moments are burned into me, clearer than most of my life. What surprises me now is how few moments after that feel as sharp. Not because nothing happened, but because I wasn't fully there. I was building a career. I was becoming reliable, respected, busy. Busy became my identity. Busy meant important. Busy meant necessary. I told myself I was doing all of it for my family, and I believed that. I wasn't lying to anyone, not consciously. My days followed patterns: hospital, rounds, charts, consults, phone calls, home late, dinner cold or reheated, kids already in pajamas, a quick hug, a question about school, a distracted answer, then paperwork, sleep, repeat. On weekends, I told myself I was exhausted, which was true, but exhaustion became a convenient shelter, a place where I didn't have to show up fully. My son played baseball. I went to some games. Not all. My daughter danced. I saw a few recitals. Not everyone. I always had reasons, real reasons. Patients can't be rescheduled. Emergencies happen. Colleagues need coverage. Medicine doesn't pause. I told myself I would make it up to them later. Vacations later. Long talks later. Quality time later. There it is again. Later. My wife handled most of the emotional labor of our family. School forms, doctor appointments, birthday gifts, friendships, conflicts. I told myself we were a team, and we were. But we were a team where one person carried most of the invisible weight. She tried to tell me sometimes, not in dramatic speeches, in small comments. I miss you. You're always tired. We don't talk much anymore. I heard the words. I didn't absorb them. I thought love was proven by providing, by paying bills, by keeping the roof solid, by staying out of trouble. I didn't understand that love is also proven by presence, by attention, by noticing. Years went by. They didn't feel fast. That's the strange part. Looking back, everyone says life goes quickly. It didn't feel quick while I was inside it. It felt full, heavy, crowded. Only now does it look compressed, like a thick book I somehow read in one sitting. The slow cost of my choices didn't announce itself. Nothing exploded. No dramatic collapse, just subtle erosion. Fewer conversations, less laughter, more logistical talk. Who's driving who? Who's picking up milk? Who's paying which bill? My son stopped asking me to come to games, not because he was angry, because he learned what the answer would be. My daughter stopped showing me her dance routines, not because she didn't care, because I looked distracted when she did. These weren't punishments. They were adaptations. Children adapt quietly. That's one of the saddest things about them. When my kids went to college, I felt proud. I told people about their majors, their accomplishments. Inside, I felt something I couldn't name. I thought it was empty nest syndrome. That's what people called it. Now I know it was something else. It was the realization that I didn't know who my adult children were. Not deeply. Not in the way you know someone whose inner world you've been invited into. I knew their resumes, not their fears, not their private hopes. My wife and I became polite roommates. We were kind to each other. We weren't cruel, which almost makes it worse, because nothing was broken enough to demand fixing. We existed in a state of quiet toleration. I thought this was what long marriages became: stable, predictable, low drama. I didn't realize stability had slowly replaced intimacy. Then came the turning point. Not dramatic, not cinematic. My wife found a lump. We assumed it was nothing. We were wrong. Diagnosis, treatment plan, chemo, radiation, surgery, all words I had used on other people thousands of times. Now they were spoken to me. I became the husband instead of the doctor. I thought my medical knowledge would give me control. It didn't. It only gave me more ways to imagine worst-case scenarios. During her treatments, I sat with her, really sat. For the first time in decades. No charts, no phone calls, no pager, just us. She slept a lot. Sometimes she held my hand. Sometimes she stared at the ceiling. One afternoon she said very softly, "I wish we'd had more time together." Not past tense, not accusing, just factual. I wanted to argue, to say we had decades, to list houses, holidays, anniversaries, but I knew exactly what she meant. She didn't mean time on the calendar. She meant time inside each other's lives. She died 8 months later. I held her when she took her last breath. I had held many people as they died. It did not prepare me for holding the person who knew me better than anyone else. After she died, people brought food. They sent cards. They told me she was in a better place. They told me I had been a wonderful husband. I nodded. I said thank you. I didn't correct them. I didn't know how to explain the truth, that I had been a reliable husband, a decent husband, but not a fully present one. After retirement, I expected rest, relief. Instead, I got quiet. Long, open, empty days. I realized how much of my identity had been tied to being needed. When no one needed me urgently anymore, I felt unnecessary. My children called, not often, but occasionally. They had their own lives, their own families. They were polite, affectionate. But there was distance, not hostility, just absence of closeness. I had helped build that. In the years after retiring, I volunteered in hospice care, not because I'm noble, because I didn't know what else to do with myself. I sat with dying people, listened to them, held hands, fetched water, adjusted pillows, heard confessions. Most people don't talk about their careers at the end. Not really. They mention them briefly, then move on. They talk about people, estranged siblings, old friends, lost loves, children they wish they'd known better. They talk about things they meant to say, apologies, gratitude, forgiveness. Almost no one says, I wish I had worked more. They say, I thought I had more time. They say, I didn't know it would end like this. They say, tell my daughter I love her. They say, I should have called my brother. They say, I kept putting it off. That's the lie, the quiet, convincing lie. That later is real. That later is guaranteed. That later belongs to us. It doesn't. I see people realize this in stages. First confusion, then sadness, then a kind of tired acceptance. Sometimes anger, sometimes relief, often regret. Not regret about one huge mistake, but about thousands of small delays, unmade phone calls, unspoken feelings, postponed visits, assumed understandings. I recognize myself in them, which is uncomfortable, but honest. There are things I cannot fix. I cannot go back to my son's childhood games. I cannot sit on the living room floor and watch my daughter dance again. I cannot have a deep, unhurried conversation with my wife. I cannot rewrite decades. I can only live with the shape they've taken. That's a heavy thing. You learn to carry it, not gracefully, just gradually. If you're listening to this, I don't know your life. I don't know your responsibilities. I don't know your pressures. I know they are real. I know survival takes work. I know providing matters. I'm not here to tell you to abandon your career or neglect your duties. I'm here to tell you something simpler. Time feels abundant until suddenly it doesn't. The people in your life are not permanent fixtures. You are not a permanent fixture. Conversations you postpone don't wait patiently. They quietly disappear. Love that isn't expressed doesn't vanish, but it changes. It becomes heavier, harder to reach. If there is someone you think about often but haven't contacted, there's a reason. If there is something you've been meaning to say, there's a reason. If there is someone you keep assuming will always be there, pause. I used to think big moments were what defined a life. Weddings, promotions, milestones. Now I think it's ordinary days. Sitting at a table, listening, being interested, noticing small changes in someone's face, asking questions and waiting for real answers. I don't have grand wisdom. I have accumulated hindsight, which is not as useful as people pretend. But it's honest. I believed I had time. I was wrong. I still wake up. I still drink my coffee. I still sit at the small kitchen table. Some mornings I talk to my wife out loud, not in a mystical way, just in a remembering way. I tell her things I didn't say enough, that I loved her, that I noticed her patience, that I'm sorry. Maybe she hears me. Maybe she doesn't. It doesn't matter. I needed to say it. If this meant something to you, you don't need to do anything dramatic. You don't need to overhaul your life. Maybe just make one small, honest reach towards someone who matters to you. Or maybe just sit with the people you're already with and really be there. As for me, I don't have many years left. I can feel that in my body, in my bones, in the way mornings feel heavier than they used to. I'm not afraid of dying. I've seen too much of it to be afraid. I am aware of what I'm leaving undone. I live with that. And I wanted to tell you, quietly, human to human. The biggest lie people believe before they die is that they still have time. I believed it. I was wrong. That's all I have left to say.